Fishing Intelligence, a fishing improvement podcast for the modern angler. What's up, guys? Jacob Jasonic here, and thank you for tuning in to the 12th episode of the Fishing Intelligence podcast. On this week's episode, I'm going to be talking with Robert Field. Rob's currently living out of an RV with plans over the next 5 years to travel to every single state in the U.S. and catch fish while capturing the personalities of each state. Rob has an excellent YouTube channel, and I've been able to know him and get advice from him for a few years now. Because of his channel, I was actually inspired to do the tour that I did this previous summer. This should be a really great episode. I hope you guys enjoy. Rob, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, man. Happy to be here.
So you're in Guntersville now, correct?
Yep, Guntersville, Alabama, staying just a few miles off the lake.
Awesome. So I talked about it a little bit in the intro, but obviously I can't sum it up as well as you can. So what exactly is the trip you're doing right now? It's massive, and it's going to sound better coming from you.
Yeah, man. Well, I really don't even consider it a trip, and a lot of people are surprised when I kind of explain what I'm doing. But yeah, so I'm, I guess, on a 5-year whatever journey or maybe lifestyle experiment. I don't know.
Adventure.
But yeah. I live in a 29.5-foot travel trailer full time. I've got no home base. Everything I own is in this little 30-foot box, and I am kind of slowly and methodically working my way through every single state that I can drive to. So all of them but Hawaii, trying to catch fish in every state, and really now do more than that. Really anything outdoors oriented, especially stuff that's kind of, well known for each state. As an example, like in Kentucky, we went horseback riding. So yeah, just kind of decided life's too short to sit in one place, and haven't stopped moving for the last year.
So obviously this is a massive adventure, 5 years. How did you get to this point? Like, what was the buildup? Have you always been this dedicated to fishing? Have you always just been a traveler, or did you ever actually have like a sit-down job? Where did you start?
Yeah, well, that's a good kind of like series of questions. So I guess, I traveled a lot growing up. I was born in London, England. I really kind of grew up in Venezuela before coming to the United States. And so yeah, I guess maybe in some sense it was sort of like in my blood. But yeah, and then beyond that, I really didn't fish until probably about 6 years ago. So it's really kind of still new to me. I consider myself a rookie and an amateur still. But yeah, no, it just kind of was that thing that I found the thing that I was really passionate about and that I loved. And I just kind of realized, I would do this every day for the rest of my life for free. And then started kind of trying to figure out a way to make a living at it. And the moving into the trailer thing, that really came about. I did a West Coast tour a few years back where I just loaded my kayaks in my truck and drove about 7,000 miles from Dallas to San Diego and fished my way all the way up to Seattle and then back. And, when I got done with that, it was like, man, that was amazing. 33 days. But, it was one day here, a day and a half there. And it just felt like I was barely scratching the surface of all these incredible places. And the light bulb went off, and, if I could just bring my house with me, I could really kind of experience these places. And, started working towards that goal, and made it happen about a year ago.
So when did Yakfish TV come into the loop?
Yeah, so Yakfish, really, pretty quickly into it. I'd say about 4.5 years ago. And really, originally, the idea for Yakfish was to find 6 or 7 other guys that were doing what I was doing, which at the time was just kind of for fun YouTube videos of kayak fishing, and try to kind of get a group of guys together where we would, meet up at each person's hometown and do some fishing and that sort of thing. But I found it very difficult to find other guys that were, or guys or gals that were, producing their own content. They weren't too rough around the edges, et cetera, that didn't already have their own thing going on. So, so that kind of fizzled out. And really since then, it's been more of I guess kind of like a lifestyle brand in the video production side of things, and we've got some apparel coming out very soon also.
Yeah, because when I first met you, that was back, what was that, 4 years ago now, maybe? And it would have been the Kayak Bass Series kayak tournament on, I don't remember what lake it was, but it was out in PA.
Lake Marburg. Yeah.
Marburg, that was it, yep. And that was the first
Yeah.
time I met you. You were just getting into kayak fishing at that point, correct?
Yeah, I'd been in it maybe a couple years, 2.5 years or so. But yeah, I was still relatively new, and that was right after I had kind of taken a small leap from the corporate world into the fishing space when I was working for Manly Rods and running that tournament series. So that was a big transitional part of my life. And how old were you then? Like 18?
I'm 22.
Yeah,
Yeah.
4 years ago. Yeah.
It's that was a long time ago, and we've been talking back and forth since that point, trying to link up for a fishing trip, and it just, we just keep barely missing each other. Like, you'll be in Chickamauga the day before I get there, and then I'll go and fish Chickamauga, or we've had a couple near misses because I did my fishing tour this summer, which was, in all honesty, inspired by your trip. I went up and traveled, did 36 or 35 states, and fished around the eastern U.S., and that was all based on watching your videos while I'm sitting here in class in college getting jealous and being like, hey man, I want to go do something like this. I got to get out and drive around, get on the road and fish with some people. So definitely the inspiration for the tour came from your trip. But you were mostly a kayak guy. Like, that's how I knew you. And I remember you telling me that you're trying to, branch out a little bit more, get into the boat scene. So are you more of a river guy, lake guy, ocean? What would you say after all these trips has been your favorite?
Yeah, well, first off, man, I'll say that I just think it's so cool, and I've got so much respect for you to put that kind of trip together and make it happen. Because I mean, I get messages every day, comments, messages, etc., saying, "Oh, I wish I could do what you're doing, but I just can't because of this, and I got bills to pay, and I got this, and I got that." And I think so many people are afraid of the work that it takes to organize something like that, afraid of the, what are the repercussions with taking this time off and blah, blah, blah. But, for you to just do it is it's just really impressive to me, man. And it was really cool kind of following along with your journey. And yeah, I remember we missed each other in Massachusetts by like a day. And
Yeah, out in Cape Cod.
yeah, yeah. But no, so as far as what I'm doing, I mean, I will always be a kayak guy. I just really prefer catching fish from a kayak than from a boat or really from anything else. I just think it's more fun, and I think that the added challenge really makes it, that much more rewarding when you find success. But I am trying to branch out. Really, I'm not a river guy or an ocean guy or a lake guy. I just love catching stuff I've never caught before, or experiencing types of bodies of water that I've never fished before. So really for me, it's all about just keeping it new and keeping it fresh. And for me, I think a big part of that is, again, kind of that added challenge of having to figure something out for the first time. I've got a ton of respect for the guys out there that go bass fishing every day, and they really just kind of mastered that and, just catch impressive fish with consistency. But for me, it's like, catching my first, as an example, in Vermont, my first little 4-inch wild brook trout, that was infinitely more rewarding than catching my 1,000th bass, even if it's a 8-pounder,
Mm-hmm.
I just really like that aspect of it. And so I guess because of that, there's definitely certain fish, certain species, certain bodies of water that just make zero sense from a kayak. And so I guess I felt that, trying to be exclusive 100% kayaking would, I guess, kind of hold me back from really my ultimate goal of experiencing all these new places and new fish. So that's kind of the reason for branching out somewhat. But like I said, I'll always be a kayak guy. Whenever catching them from a kayak is an option, that's definitely my preferred vessel.
It is a fun way to do it. I mean, you get the added experience of going for sleigh rides when you're hooking into bigger fish, and
Exactly.
just that much closer to the water. It's a whole nother experience for those who haven't gotten a chance to get into kayak fishing yet, I definitely recommend it. And do you have like a special setup that you like to roll out with for your kayak every time? Because I've had a few guys on the podcast that have been kayak guys, and they'll either have X amount of rods or they'll put 2 cameras here, because you've got cameras all around that thing. So like, what's your go-to layout, camera wise and rod wise, for your kayak when you do your trips?
Yeah, so rod, fishing tackle wise, it's a little trickier again because I'm just always doing something different, So one day I might be chasing bass in a river, and then the next day I'm, on the marsh chasing redfish or whatever. And so that's really constantly changing. And I'm, honestly, it's again tough living in a 30-foot box because I have to have all this different tackle and different rods and reels for all these different types of fishing. And so that's one challenge of it. But yeah, as far as filming goes, I've got a system that I've got pretty well down. I use Railblaze accessories on the kayak. It's really nice because their stuff's kind of universal and you can plug and play, move stuff around like Legos. But I typically have a camera facing me on one of their Camera Boom 600s, and then a camera behind me to get that kind of over the shoulder perspective. And those are GoPro Hero 5s because I'm a starving artist and can't afford the 7s yet. But and then I almost always am wearing the action hat on my head, which is that floating kind of integrated GoPro mount on a hat. And that is how I get my audio. So a lot of people ask me, what are you using to get your audio so crisp in these videos? And really, it's nothing fancy. It's just the GoPro. And when you put it on your head, it's just so much closer to your mouth that it really picks up the audio a lot better. And so, I look kind of goofy, I think, a lot of times with this big camera on my forehead, but really it just helps. The audio, I think, is key to making compelling video content. People, I always say, videos with music and hook sets and big fish, that's cool, but it doesn't leave a lasting impression on people. Like, people don't really connect with the fish. They don't really connect with the music necessarily. People connect with people. And so, kind of being a person and showing your personality is the key to that. And, getting decent audio is critical. So yeah, the action hat really helps me get that done. And the reason I love it too, since it floats, I actually had a mishap in Texas back when I first started, when I was just using the GoPro head strap when I was pedaling around trolling for kingfish, and I got a run, and I snapped my my neck back to look up at the rod, and there went my $400 camera to the bottom of the ocean. So
necessity is the mother of all invention, right?
right, yeah. So I look at it as a little insurance policy for that camera on my head.
Yeah, I was actually one of the first guys to get the action hat, and I saw Rex at ICAST this year. Told him that I was one of the first ones to get it. I showed him a picture of how beat up my action hat was, and he hooked me up with a fresh action hat. So I'm rolling around with the new model now, feeling pretty sweet.
Nice, yeah. The new one's way more comfortable than the old one. And Rex is such a good dude, and he's a really good friend of mine. And I'd say he's definitely the best friend I've made through the sport. And he was actually the first guy that I recruited to Yakfish TV in that kind of quest for getting other guys that were putting out cool content. And I think we work well together because we're just basically like total opposites. He is a character. He's a quirky dude. Yeah.
He's a good follow on Facebook.
Yeah, he absolutely is. And he actually had a huge role to play in me kind of taking the leap to doing this full time, taking a chance. He really kind of gave me a kick in the butt to quit feeling sorry for myself at a tough time in my life and use that to take a chance. And, here I am, I guess about almost 3 years later doing this full time. And really, I think without Rex, it wouldn't be the case. So
it's incredible.
Yeah, man.
So you recently hit now you're way over it, but you recently hit the 100K mark on YouTube. And that's obviously you come into YouTube, you think 100K, that's a big number. So what did it feel like to jump that mark?
Yeah, man, it was awesome, obviously. And, it's funny because looking back, like when I started doing these videos, it was, barely a hobby. When I first started doing them, I was working 8 to 5 and getting my master's in finance. And I would do try to go fishing, one day every 2 weeks and be editing the video till 3 in the morning after grad school, and for nothing. I mean, I wasn't even getting a discount on any products or anything. I just did it because I loved it. And if you had told me then that 5 years later I'd have 100,000 subscribers on YouTube and I'd be, traveling the country fishing for a living, I'd have told you to pass the bottle or whatever. But no, it's just incredible, man. It's still like really hard for me to believe. And it's funny. I go back home every once in a while to Dallas and see friends from high school and college, and they're like, "Dude, I didn't even know you fished." And I'm like, "Well, when I knew you back in college, I didn't fish." And yeah, it's just crazy how quickly it can come. And I think there's a good life lesson there. Like, I guess you just never know like how some small decision will change your life. And I think that if people can find that thing that they don't mind working hard at for no money, if you keep working hard at it, the money will work itself out. Like that part's easy. It's the figuring out what that thing really is that kind of makes you tick. I think if you can find that and devote yourself to it in whatever spare time you have, I think you're on a good path to kind of building a life that you'll be excited to live. So
Yeah, and something that my friends would always make fun of me for, staying in and finishing up edits and stuff like that. And then eventually for me, it turned into my summer trip. I got picked up because of the videos I was making. So it really is just, if you're willing to put in the time for something you love, chances are you're going to be able to be successful or find some sort of success with that.
absolutely. And I tell people all the time, like this day and age, everything's changed because of social media and YouTube and blogs and all this stuff. You can make a living doing anything, literally anything. And I always make the joke, I don't care if you're into underwater basket weaving, you can make a living doing it. There's other people out there that are into whatever you're into. And now through social media and YouTube and stuff, you can reach those people. And I actually had someone, I guess a couple months ago, call me out, and they're like, "Well, maybe not underwater basket weaving, Rob, like, don't be ridiculous." And I said, "No, I guarantee you." And so we Googled it. I Googled underwater basket weaving, and something like 600,000 results came up.
Oh my
And
God.
it's like, yeah, and it's like that could be 600,000 subscribers that you could get for doing videos about it doesn't matter what it is. The world is so big. There's so many people that no matter what weird or whatever when I told people I think I'm going to try to be a kayak angler full time, most people looked at me like I was, an idiot. But it's like, no matter how niche the thing that you're into feels, I guarantee you there's probably millions of people out there that are into it too. So it's kind of an exciting time to be alive, really.
Absolutely. So obviously this lifestyle that you're living right now isn't the easiest. You don't have just a solid place that you're living. You're moving around every couple weeks. What's the hardest part of your lifestyle right now?
Yeah, the inconsistency and connectivity has been a big challenge. So, we typically stay at campgrounds for the most part. Sometimes I'm on people's property, but usually we're at campgrounds, and campgrounds just kind of by their nature tend to be sort of out there. People don't want to go camping in the middle of the city, right? So we often find ourselves with little to no cell service and little to no Wi-Fi. And since my job is internet based, that's a big challenge. We spend a lot of time at McDonald's and Starbucks working. So that's been a big challenge. And really that's it. Like there's a lot of things. Again, I get a lot of people that say, "Oh, I wish I could do the RV life, but what would I do about mail, and what would I do about laundry, and what would I do about this and that," and all these things that I really thought were going to be big problems. And it's like, when you really get down to it, none of it's a big deal. Like it's all very easy to work through. I mean, maybe inconvenient, but none of it is really that detrimental to my life. So yeah, really a lot of things that I was worried about really have turned out to be not a big deal at all. So it's definitely worth the challenges.
And the fishing community is such a strong community too. I'm sure that a lot of people are out there that are willing to help you out along the way, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I always say that, a year ago when I moved all my stuff in the trailer and kind of set out, I was positive that, the incredible parts of this journey were going to be the fish I was going to catch and the places I was going to see and the national monuments and, blah, blah, blah. But really so far, far and away the most rewarding part of this whole thing has been the people that it's introduced into my life. And it's really cool. I think the outdoors kind of community in general, and specifically fishing, kayak fishing, and camping, the people just tend to be good people. I keep telling myself it's inevitable. Like, I'm bound to run into some bad apples and some jerks and weirdos and creepers and whatever. And so far there's been like none. Like, pretty much everyone that I've met at the campgrounds and on fishing trips, and I've even stayed on several strangers' property that I found online on this website called Boondockers Welcome. All of them have really been incredible in their own way. And I really noticed a lot of, I guess, personal growth over the last year, and really not due to any of the fish I've caught or any of that stuff, but really just all these different people from all walks of life that I've had the chance to interact with. And yeah, it's been really cool, kind of meeting all these like somewhat random, but at the same time we all have something in common, people. It's been really cool.
In one of your recent episodes, you had Theo, who was one of your followers who you actually got to meet in person. And I thought that was such a touching episode. The fact that he knew so much about your journey, and you actually got to go out, interact with him, and fish with him. That was just a really, really cool episode that you put out.
Yeah, man, that was one of the more rewarding kind of experiences so far, I'd say. And it was really random. I mean, the guy, his dad emailed me. I have my email listed on my YouTube, so anyone can find it. And he emailed me and said, basically my son Theo's, he's just like your number one fan. He doesn't even watch cartoons anymore. All he watches is your show. And he's like, I've seen every episode 6 times because I got to watch it with him. And he said, Theo would love to send you some fan mail. And he mentioned that they were in Ithaca, New York, and we just so happened to be about an hour away. And so, yeah, I kind of told him, like, let me do you one better. Why don't I just come down there and we can meet Theo, and he can give me his fan mail in person and surprise him and maybe do a little fishing off a dock. And so we made it happen. And really, it was at a time when most of the time I'm stressed and behind and editing. I just can never get caught up on editing. But I really didn't have time to do it, but I decided to just, make the time. And yeah, it was, I joke, but really not, that I'm pretty confident it was a lot more rewarding for me than it was for him. But yeah, it was just such a cool experience. And, I've realized, I think over the last year, that I want to leverage this audience that I have, this opportunity that I have to spread some positive messages out there. I don't want, whenever this fizzles out and people get sick of watching me catch fish, I don't want to look back and say, like, what a waste. What was it all for? I want to look back and say, I did what I could to use that audience to maybe leave the world some tiny bit better than I found it, kind of thing. So yeah, it's important to me, and I want to do more stuff with kids. So I'm kind of working through some ideas for how I can maybe do more meetups like that, maybe host some kind of get-togethers and that sort of thing. So yeah, it really impacted me in a big way. Again, I think even more so than Theo thought it was cool. So
you got to meet his personal celebrity, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the editing and the stress of having to be on the road, working all the time. So you just picked up Jamie now from Cape Cod. Is she working as a partial editor? What is her role in helping your YouTube channel flow smoothly?
Yeah, so up until when was that? September 1st. I've just kind of been a one-man band, right? I hosted, and I obviously catch the fish and edit it, and I do the sales and the marketing and everything. And I really just found myself kind of drowning. Like the RV life aspect was sort of almost like camel that broke, or the straw that broke the camel's back type of thing. I mean, it just was, a lot more on my plate, just the logistics of it. And, just moving the trailer is a full day burn pretty much from one spot to the next. And so I just realized that it wasn't sustainable, and I couldn't grow the business at all because all my time was sucked into editing. So I'd been looking for some help, and yeah, I met Jamie totally randomly on her dad's boat. And she was just kind of in a position in her life, I mean, really similar to where you're at. We're a little bit ahead of you, but she had just graduated college, and she said that her plan was to take a year off and blow all her money she had saved up and just travel the country. And I jokingly turned to her and was like, or maybe you roll with me for a year or 2 years or whatever and travel the country and make a little money, you know? And I was chuckling as I said it. I mean, I was just joking, and she turned to me and was like, let's go. Like, that's like my dream gig, you know, let's do it. And so, yeah, here we are. And yeah, so far she really helps me with all kinds of stuff. She's been doing a lot of the filming on the water. And yeah, she definitely does editing. So she's started off editing some shorter stuff, and now she's been with me maybe close to 3 months, and she's, I think, just wrapped up her third full episode edit for me. So yeah, she's really picked up the editing just wildly fast. I thought no way I would trust her with an episode 3 months in, but she's really been killing it. And I've had a lot of people tell me that they can't even tell which ones she's editing and which ones I am. So yeah, she's doing a great job. And you know, there's been some challenges. You know, 23-year-old girl moving in with a 31-year-old dude and living in a box
I'm sure.
has been a big adjustment for both of us. So, you know, it hasn't been 100% smooth sailing, but she's pretty easygoing. I'm pretty easygoing, and yeah, it's been going well, man. It's been nice to have some help, and I also think that that dynamic is going to be interesting for the show. You know, she's lived her entire life on Cape Cod, and she knows how to fish. She was the first mate on her dad's boat, but she really only knows that one specific style of fishing. And so just in the last 3 months, she has had, I mean, just countless first experiences and, you know, new things introduced into her life. And it's been cool for me to watch. And I'm really trying to capture some of that on video to kind of share that with the audience. Because I mean, her whole world has been expanding at a pretty quick pace these last 3 months. And yeah, I think it's gonna be kind of cool to watch all of this kind of unfold from two just wildly different perspectives. So yeah, it's been cool.
And she's gonna help you keep your sanity.
Right. Yeah, that's the hope. And she's definitely been helping me with kind of work-life balance. She forces me to get away from the computer and, you know, go do stuff. Like I said, we went horseback riding in Kentucky and went to this shooting park, amusement park kind of thing, shot some skeet in Tennessee. She's in charge of the kind of extracurricular activities. So that's been good for me also. And yeah, it's been cool, man.
So what are your guys' immediate future plans for the next, say, month?
Yeah, so right now we're in Alabama. We're basically wintering down here on the Gulf. And so we're going to be kind of moseying our way over to Texas and kind of, you know, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, spend the winter down there. And then we'll kind of start heading back north as spring hits. We'll be heading towards the Great Lakes. We're going to spend the summer doing all the Great Lakes. But really before all of that, she's going home for the holidays in December. I will be here working like always, but then January I head back to Panama to Los Buzos Resort for 2 weeks. And then I just found out last night that February 1st I'll be heading to Australia and New Zealand for 3 weeks to do some fishing out there. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, I'm
man.
stoked.
New
Stoked
Zealand
for
is
that one.
the dream trip for me because I'm a big trout guy. You say New Zealand and I get fired up. That's awesome.
Yeah, man, I'm really excited. I've never been over there, and yeah, I'm going with a guy in a company called Fish Village that I've worked with in the past. I went to Alaska with them. We did a mothership trip, took 22 kayaks 50 miles out in the ocean out of San Diego. They basically work with lodges around the world, setting up kayak fishing trips for groups. And yeah, the owner, Mike Ponce, is a good friend of mine now. He spent Christmas Eve with my mother last year. I mean, he's become a family friend, and yeah, it's really cool. It's an awesome company, and there's a lot of cool trips on there. And they basically use me to go kind of test out the new places, see what the fishing is like, capture some content so we can kind of market the trips. So you know, it's one of those things, actually, like a lot of the things that I do, where I really don't get paid very much, really, if any, but I get to go to Australia and New Zealand and kind of experience all that. So it's very much worth it. You know, I always say if I was in it for the money, I'd have stayed in the finance world. I'm in it for the experiences. So I'm a pretty cheap date in that sense.
Yeah, I can't blame you though. I mean, when you're living experience to experience, that's not a bad lifestyle.
Yeah, man, I think most people, were spoon-fed this message that, to be successful in life, you gotta, you know, just finish school, go to college, get the job, get married, buy a house, and kind of work this job that hopefully you don't hate too bad for 40 years. And then don't worry, when you're 65, you can go out and do all these amazing things because you saved up all this money. And I'm like, it just seems so backwards to me. And I'm not saying don't go to school. I went to college twice and I don't regret it. But, for me, it's like I'd rather scrape by and experience all these things for those 40 years and then be broke and homeless when I'm 65. Like I don't want to, I don't know. It just seems so backwards to me. And yeah, I kind of am breaking the mold and I've never been happier. And that's another message I'd like to kind of pepper into my content. It's, so many people think that what I'm doing is impossible or unattainable or I could never do that. I got bills to pay. It's like, man, I got bills to pay, but if you're willing to work hard and you get a little creative, you can pay your bills doing something you love. So
Perfectly said. Yeah. That's our 30 minutes for the podcast. I appreciate you coming on, and how about you let people know where they can find you?
yeah, man, it's been awesome. And I look forward to us getting together again. But yeah, you can find me on YouTube. The show's called Field Trips with Robert Field. If you type in Field Trips, it should pop up. And then on social media, Instagram is at YakFishField. Same with Facebook and Twitter. So yeah, check out the show. Comment. I reply to every single comment on YouTube. So if anyone has any other questions for me, they can hit me up there, and I will reply to them.
Hey man, one day we're going to fish together, but I appreciate you hopping on the podcast. It's been fun talking to you, and I look forward to next time.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys for listening to another week of the Fishing Intelligence Podcast. Make sure you check out Rob's channel, and also be sure to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and Podbean. I appreciate any positive reviews and ratings that you guys feel like leaving. And as always, I'll catch you next week. Fishing Intelligence, a fishing improvement podcast for the modern angler.